What gives a Happy Meal its smile? Is it the delicious 4-piece chicken McNuggets with no artificial colors or preservatives? The kid-sized fries? The apple slices? Or the low-fat milk? Maybe. But we think what gives a Happy Meal its smile is watching the whole family enjoying a meal. With a McDonald's Happy Meal, everyone enjoys together. Just $3 on the all-new $1, $2, $3 menu. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, folks. How are you doing? It's Danny Tisdale, and you're listening, of course, to the Danny Tisdale Show. That pause there, make it a little bit more dramatic. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. And as always, I am so happy to have you here with us. And before we get started, I want to do what we usually do, and that's to let you know what's trending on the website. Of course, our website is harlemworldmag.com. What did you say? Hold on a second. Say it again so that you can write it down, harlemworldmag.com. And, one of the great pieces that we have that's trending is a great article by Lil Nicholson, our food writer, and she switched up a little bit and went to the MLK event held by some electeds here uptown, and it was a great event, and so great that you can check out the photos and the article that she wrote. Also, a little information. It's the Jay-Z's Rock Nation event, Beyonce brunch. We cover everything that has to do with Harlem. So, of course, Sean Diddy Combs was at the event, and, of course, Harlem World covered it. So we have it all there just for you. And, folks, first of all, we have our top 10 trending articles. We call it What's Hot. So I just gave you 2, but we've got a number of articles that are just churning off of the site, and you should check it out. Don't forget that you can check us out at twitter.com/HWMag, also at facebook.com/HWMag. And, of course, as I said earlier, you can check us out on the website at harlemworldmag.com. Today, we have a very, very, very interesting guest. And, we think that it was perfect to have this guest for the new year because, we know that he's passionate about the work that he does, and you can tell by the passion that he has, by the commitment he's made to the work. And we're talking about Mark L. Goldsmith. First visited Rikers Island over 15 years ago as a volunteer for the Principal of the Day program at Horizon Academy, the jail's high school. Immediately he saw in the young men assembled the potential for success, given practical direction, and importantly, the tools for creating stability in their lives upon reentry into their communities like Harlem. As for a former executive in the cosmetics industry, Mr. Goldsmith brought to his day on Rikers Island more than 35 years ago of experience in the corporate world, techniques for success he continues to apply to his work with guys at Getting Out and Staying Out, also known as GOSO, G-O-S-O, the mentoring program he founded to guide young men aged 16 to 24 years of old upon their release from Rikers Island. Since that time, Goldsmith has developed GOSO into an organization that now helps more than 1,500 young men each year to achieve educational goals and jobs that lead to careers. Mr. Goldsmith has been recognized for his decades of leadership and his stalwart commitment to using his life experience to help young people stay out of the criminal justice system. At GOSO, with the Encore.org Purpose Prize and the Richard Cornuelle, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Award for Social Entrepreneurship. And in September 2017, Mr. Goldsmith attended the White House Summit on Reentry Services upon direct invitation from the administration. There, GOSO was extolled as a reentry program to be replicated throughout the country. And before I finish, last week we posted the story, new Harlem post-Rikers Reentry Educational Center opening right here in Harlem about GOSO and some of their Harlem grads. And today we have Mr. Goldsmith here to talk to us about his amazing work. How are you doing, Mr. Goldsmith?
I'm sorry?
Hello, Mr. Goldsmith.
I'm here. Do you hear me?
Fantastic. We are connected. How are you doing today?
I like to say if I was any better, I don't know what I'd do with myself. Things are very good. Things are excellent.
That's good, and I want to congratulate you right here on our podcast for the great work that you're doing, and especially the new program.
It's the people. Trust me, it's not me. I give leadership, and I created it, but the hard work in the trenches is done by the staff, a dedicated group of licensed social workers, some admin people, some finance people, but the secret to the program and the reason our recidivism rate is so low is we have a three-pronged attack that we use with the guys, and it starts with the letter E. It's education, employment, and emotional well-being. And a lot of agencies do the education, they do the employment, but they forget the emotional well-being. And considering the fact that 50% of the guys on Rikers have mental health issues, you cannot work here on a direct basis with the guys without a master's degree in social work. You have to be able to do therapy. You have to be able to deal with the issues that these young men bring to the table. And that's really one of the main secrets of our success.
Well, that sounds like it's I just kind of snicker there because it sounds that it's like it's extremely important to leave that out of the mix. Sounds like you would miss a huge part of what goes on with those young men.
Unfortunately, some people, why can't they pick themselves up by their bootstraps and make it the way I did? Well, they've been dealt a bad deck of cards. They came from family situations and that are just not good. A tremendous amount have come from foster care, and they have had little or no guidance with respect to how do you make it in this world? How do you present yourself? How do you do basic things like resumes, cover letters, interview skills? We have
basic things to get a job.
Let me take you back to Rikers though, because it's important.
Okay.
You mentioned about the 1,500. Those are the 1,500 guys who we see out of our office. I'm sitting right now looking at the corner of 116th Street in Madison, which is where my office is. I invite you to visit any day you'd like to come. But the program started on Rikers Island, where I volunteered for something called Principal for the Day. And I'm a bit of a wise guy sometimes. I ask, the organization's called Pencil. Have you ever done Principal for the Day?
No, I haven't.
Have you ever done it? It's worthwhile because
not yet.
The organization's called Pencil. It stands for Public Education Needs the Involvement of Civic Leaders. So I went down there and I said, please don't send me to a fancy school. I want a tough school. I was figuring on East New York or maybe South Bronx. And they said to me, okay, wise guy, how about Rikers Island? And I said, okay, that's different. And off to Rikers Island I went, where I met these young men who were, two things impressed me. Number one, how young they really were. And number two, how smart they really were. So I made an analogy for them. I thought they're always interested in money and making money. So I created an analogy between General Motors and a drug cartel. And I staffed General Motors, this is all on the blackboard, because the correction officers had come up to me and they said, we don't know why they're listening to a white guy in a suit. What the hell are you telling these guys? And what I did was a General Motors profile, marketing, advertising, sales, finance, all that. And the drug cartel,
right.
I put the kingpin at the top, I put them at the bottom, and they gave me all these weird names in between. And I said, gentlemen, there's no difference between these two organizations. They're both money-making machines. Trouble is you're working for the wrong machine. And you really want to move to the other side. And by the way, what are you good at? And if somebody said they were good with numbers, I put them in finance. You're good with people, I put them in HR. They're good with hands, I put them in construction. And they thought that was all pretty interesting, and I went back to work. 1 year later, I did nothing for a solid year. 1 year later, comes principal for the day again, and I get the call. And I said, well, where are you sending me this year? And I said, well, the principal, Gloria Ortiz, wants you back on Rikers. I said, well, somebody wants me back. I'm going. So back to Rikers I went. And this time, a lawyer showed up. So we had two principals. And I put my branding hat on from my industry experience. I said, well, you're talking about them getting out of here, and I'm talking about them staying out of here, getting out and staying out. That makes sense. And so I went on vacation with my wife, who's a PhD social worker and runs an agency called New Alternatives for Children. It's probably the best child care agency in New York, dealing with severely handicapped children. And she and all of her friends decided I was a perfect candidate to start the not-for-profit. I was doing consulting work at that time. And so I basically went into business. I worked out of a Starbucks. I drank more cafe lattes in a year you could possibly imagine.
I can imagine.
Interestingly,
I've done that.
I couldn't get an office in Harlem because I was going to buildings with elevators, and truthfully, the landlord didn't want me in because of my constituency. So I told the real estate guys, I know what I have to do. So I just started walking. We live on 94th Street on the east side. I just started walking up and down the avenues and the wide streets, knocking on windows. And I found something on at 91 East 116, and I knocked on the window, and there was a sign, and I called my son, who's a lawyer. He drafted a one-pager, and we moved in. And
Fantastic.
Stayed there for quite a few years until about 4 years ago. There was a closeout store down on the corner, 116 in Madison, that went out of business. I remember the explosion in Harlem between 116. Yeah, that was our back window. In fact,
wow.
I had people there. They could have been killed. Fortunately, they were not.
That was the gas explosion, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're still there in that building.
Fantastic.
So we took over the corner, and then you just alluded to the fact we opened up our new educational center. Now, the education is run by the DOE, the Department of Education. They have a District 79, which is their alternative school system. And so I went to the authorities on Rikers Island, a gentleman named Tim Lasante, who's the superintendent of all of District 79, and he and Bob Zweig, who run the GED program, or TASK it's called now, said to me, you've done such a great job on Rikers, let's do it. So we created our own GED facility, and that was up at the first location. And it's grown so that I just took a new spot down on 116 between Madison, between 5th and Lenox. And it's a brand new space, 2,500 square feet. It's got a GED facility, but we call it our education center because in addition to education, that's where we run our vocational program. So we have OSHA training, we have security training. But just back up one more global statement on who we work with. The 1,500 are out of the office in East Harlem. There's another approximately 800-900 that we see every year on Rikers Island. I will be on Rikers tomorrow morning. I've been there for 13 years. And we still work. The Horizon Academy is now called the East River Academy. And that's where we go out, and we have a great group of young people called, they're social work interns. They come from the finest graduate schools of social work in the city, NYU, Columbia, Fordham.
Top of the line.
And so what we do out there is that's where we first start talking to them about getting out and staying out, trying to paint the picture that this is not the end of the world, but you are going to have to get some education. And so we see them on Rikers until their cases are adjudicated. And by the way, if you're interested in closing Rikers, and the whole Rikers story is very interesting.
Which we are.
A little history. back in the Giuliani lock 'em up and throw away the key days, there were 20,000 people on Rikers. Every night, 20,000 slept there. When I started, they were down to about 12 or 13,000. That's about 14, 15 years ago. And now they're down to 8,000. So it's gradually closing. However, the plan to close Rikers is very simple. There's only a couple hundred adolescents left, and they're already moving them out by August 1st. They're going to a place called Horizon. It's either in the Bronx or Manhattan, and another place in Brooklyn. The next thing you do is you go after the women. You see, what you don't want to do is put all of these people in one borough. You want to spread it around to different boroughs. So you take the women, let's say there's 1,000 women, and you put them in a second borough. Then you take the sentenced population, which is maybe 1,000 or 1,500, you put them in a third borough, and by that time, you're probably down to 4,000 or 5,000. And you build a new facility for 4,000 or 5,000 somewhere for the cases that are still open. And that's the logical way to close Rikers.
And it makes a lot of sense.
What they're doing now is they're closing building at a time, which makes no sense. The building I'll be going to tomorrow. All the buildings out there, if you ever see initials, they're the names of former wardens. So GMDC's George M. Mochin, OBC's Otis Banham. So they're closing one. Supposedly it's going to take too much money to fix it. But anyhow, so that gives you kind of a global picture of where we are and where we go. The secret, in addition to these, I'm sorry, your question.
Well, I wanted to, first of all, we are already at the halfway point, and I want our listeners to know that they're listening to the Danny Tisdale Show, and, of course, I'm Danny Tisdale, and this is part of our programming by way of Harlem World Magazine, the #1 magazine in the world for all things Harlem. Since 2003, yes, it's our 15th anniversary, but more importantly,
we're both the same, 15 years. There you go.
Thank you. I'm knocking on some solid wood over here.
Hold on. Me too.
All right. That was an echo. We love those kind of echoes, especially as we look to the next 15 and plus. And more importantly, we're going to come right back to you, Mr. Goldsmith. And I wanted to ask you a question because I'm so happy that you laid this foundation of history to where we are today. But I wanted to go back and ask you, not everyone has cosmetic industry experience and wake up the next day, my words, and want to create a reentry program. Who inspired you to kind of do the work you're doing?
That's interesting because this was no mission that I was on. It wasn't me trying to give back to society, none of that stuff. What basically happened, Danny, is I grew up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. It's a small coal mining town out near Pittsburgh. And I was a great basketball player. We were like Western State runner-up in basketball.
I can see that you're tall.
Yeah, well, for those days, 6'1" was big. Not so big anymore.
That's right.
But in those days. And I really was not a very good student. And I did some things while I was in high school that had I been of color and done those things in New York City, I could have ended up on Rikers Island. I always say there, but for the grace of God, go any one of us. And I looked at these young men and I said to myself, these guys are not that much different than you were. I mean, they played basketball. I was rock and roll. They happened to be hip hop. But still into music and socializing.
That's right.
And then I went to Penn State for 2 years, and I did not do well at all. The dean and I had a meeting, and he said, Mr. Goldsmith, one of us has to leave Penn State, and it's not going to be me. I said, uh-oh.
The conversation.
Uh-oh. Now I get home and tell my
Where
father
are my bags?
Hey. So he said, well, what are you going to do now? I said, well, I'm going to the Navy, because in those days you had to go in the service. So I served in the United States Navy, came topside of destroyer in the harbor, called my dad in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I said, get me a job. And he got me a job pushing racks around the garment district. And that's how I got to New York. I fell in with some Penn State guys. And then I met somebody, a young graduate student at Columbia University School of Social Work, and we did the love thing, and she said to me, well, let's get this right. I have a master's. I'll probably get a PhD, which she has, and you haven't graduated in college. I said, oh, damn. So back to school I went. I did my undergraduate work at NYU, and I got a master's degree from Baruch, and then I got hired by Pfizer that had just bought Coty, and that launched my 40-year career in the cosmetic business. So it was very serendipitous that I got into it. I worked on men's and women's product. You know, the Brute fragrance, that green bottle.
Oh, yeah.
Thing. That was one of mine. I worked hard on that. I created Yves Saint Laurent's brands for men. Ran a Japanese company called Shiseido. Finished up at Almay's hypoallergenic cosmetics.
Oh, yeah,
and,
great brand.
That's what I did, and I was basically in the marketing end, marketing, advertising, sales. And I eventually rose to general manager, so I was basically running the companies. And then I was getting up in years, and I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. So I did some consulting work. Then I had a bartering and trading company where I bought certain products and then bartered and traded them for media time. And having been in the cosmetic business, I knew Ralph Lauren and other people. And so if somebody like Lauren had a line that didn't work, I would buy it from them, redistribute it in the secondary market, and buy media time for them with it. And
the remix.
You got it. So, but basically, I was very into my staffs wherever I was, whether I was general manager or running sales or marketing, whatever, and knew the importance of building a good staff. And then leading 100% by example. I'm usually the first one in the morning, the last one out at night, and I'm here most Saturdays. It's like there's a work ethic. You come out of Western Pennsylvania and you work. That's part of the deal.
That coal mining sensibility, right?
Yeah, my kids went to ethical culture schools and then to Fieldston here, and then they went to college, and they came back after their freshman year. I said, hey, Dad, we have a question. Yes? How come we're the only kids who worked in high school? I said, because that's the way it is in this family. And I'm not buying your car. I'm not buying your car either, which I didn't.
Get it yourself, right?
Yeah, I do very much lead by example. And once
that's
again,
great.
and I do it because I do feel this kinship with the guys, even though we're not necessarily the same color and not from the same background. I remember what that was like, not having a clue what I wanted to do. And so we're really the first people that ever asked these people, young men, what do you want to do? What are you good at? Are you good with your hands? Are you good with people? Are you good with numbers? Are you good with words? And it's a whole new world for them, for somebody to ask them. On Rikers Island, to get into the program, you have to write an essay. And those essays are sometimes used in court because we write court letters for these guys while they're going through that process.
I see.
And as you know, virtually, exactly, maybe 85% get pled out. They never go to trial because it's the old, we're offering you this, you're not going to take this.
Yes.
There's another aspect. I'm sorry. There's another aspect to the program. How did I forget this? When you leave Rikers Island, and you know what up top is the vernacular for upstate. When you go up top, we keep you in the loop. We correspond with you, and we have right now about 300 or 400 guys up top who we write to over the years. And at our opening the other night on the Education Center, I had two young men there. One of them I hadn't seen in 9 years. Last I saw him was on Rikers Island. He kept in the loop for 8-9 years and came back and came directly to our program. And one of our board members' daughters gave him a position in a search firm. And he is learning the search business. So that becomes an important part of the program, the upstate program.
That's really incredible, and I'm not surprised to hear that story after listening to you and you telling your story. But believe it or not, Mr. Goldsmith, we're already at our last 5 minutes, and I wanted to ask you a question. I don't know if you wear Oxfords, But if someone wanted to follow in your footsteps to do the kind of work that you're doing, what kind of advice would you give him or her?
Volunteer. I think volunteer.
Okay, first step.
It would not be uncommon to volunteer at any of the organizations that do the work we do, and find out if they're really suited for it. I had a man from the real estate business who wanted to help out here, and he was doing interview skills, and he was not connecting with the guys. And he came up to my house and says, "MG," that's what they call it. These guys are not where I want them to be. So I'll leave out the expletive, but I said, "No blank Dick, the word Dick, no blank Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
If they were where you wanted them to be, they wouldn't be where they are."
They are,
you
exactly.
You have to be able to meet them where they are. That's
where they
the
are,
key
right.
ingredient. Exactly. And then talk to them about where they might want to go. Second, there's a place called the Foundation Center, and the Foundation Center is funded by and you go there, and that's where you look up the area that you want to work in. Is it reentry or whatever? And that will point you in the direction of the foundations who are supporting that particular thing, whether it be disadvantaged children or single mothers or whatever. So then you're looking at it, because the real issue is, how are you going to fund it? I started this with my own money, but I knew that wasn't going to last long, so I had to go out and search for funders, and then you have.
And that's where the Foundation Center comes in. Yeah.
Right, and then the city has finally woken up to us, and we're now getting properly funded by the city council. At this point, we don't do any state or federal money. It's strictly New York City and New York City Council, a tremendous organization that really helps us a lot.
Yeah, and you're certainly on point with that. And, we're at our last 3 minutes, and I most definitely wanted to let our listeners and readers know how they can follow the work you're doing, follow you, follow any way they can follow you. Do you have a website, Facebook, Twitter, any of that where they can follow you?
It's GOSONYC.org.
Okay. Can you say that one more time?
GOSO, G as in George, S as in Sam, GOSONYC.org. Hold on a second. Let me get those other designations. Just a minute.
Okay. All right. And, folks, you can hear the passion in Mr. Goldsmith's voice, and that's what we love. And follow your passion is what we all suggest to both ourselves, our listeners, and to our staff. When we post...
What is our Twitter account?
GOSONYC.
Twitter is GOSONYC.
All of our social media is GOSONYC.
All right.
So you go to Facebook.com/GOSONYC, Twitter.com/GOSONYC.
You got it.
Okay.
Hello?
And we heard it. Yes.
All right. So you haven't asked me a question. There's one question I thought you were going to ask me. What is my favorite spot in Harlem?
Oh,
one of my favorites.
That was coming. That's my last question, Mr. Goldsmith.
Well,
come on.
You're not going to believe what it is.
Uh-oh.
It's my office.
I'm sitting down.
My office. I'm in my office. Because I look out. You really have to cut. You really do. I have a window on the world. I'm looking right out at 116th and Madison, which was probably crack cocaine heaven years ago, and now
back in the 80s.
It's really turning into shape. And my fancy visitors I take up to Red Rooster for lunch, if I can get out of it. And I also go to, what the hell's the name? Dick Parsons opened up a place up here, Minton's.
Yes,
that's a fun place to go to.
Great music
but
too.
That's it. Yep.
That's fantastic, and I want to thank you for sharing your story. Of course, I have more questions, but what is most important that you've asked you've answered the main questions, and I do want to commend you on the great work that you've done, you're doing, and you continue to do.
Appreciate
Thank you very much.
So when are you going to pay me a visit?
we're going to have to figure that out. I'm going to send you an email right after I get off the line, and we'll hook that up.
I'd look forward to that. I really would.
I do too, sir, and thank you for being on the show, and more importantly,
My
thank
pleasure.
you for the great work that you're doing. I really respect that, and more props to you.
Thank you. Good to talk.
Thank you. And matter of fact, your great staff in the back there who's giving you all those URLs you needed. Thank you to them also. Thank you, sir. Take care and have a good one.
You too. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. As we love and always talk about, we love to talk to our guests who are doing great works, and in some ways they're always leaders, legends, and trailblazers in Harlem. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
The New York Times, Rolling Stone, and critics everywhere are all raving about Annihilation.
It's not destroying, it's making something new.
It's a mind-blowing experience, and now it's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Annihilation, rated R, now playing.
What gives a Happy Meal its smile? Is it the delicious 4-piece chicken McNuggets with no artificial colors or preservatives? The kid-sized fries? The apple slices? Or the low-fat milk? Maybe. But we think what gives a Happy Meal its smile is watching the whole family enjoying a meal. With a McDonald's Happy Meal, everyone enjoys together. Just $3 on the all-new $1, $2, $3 menu. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.